Chandra. It's a delight to meet you today. I'm
Thank you.
thrilled to be here and to be getting to know you in this beautiful, organic, and delicate way over a wonderful topic and a mutual friend that we have, Christine.
Oh, thank you.
Likewise, I am grateful to be here. It's a joy to be doing this together, and it is a beautiful unfolding of what you want to create, and that this theme is emerging and bubbling out of you that we're excited about.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think through conversation that in my motto, love is everything, that we can continue to facilitate real talk with real women, which I think is important to do because, bridging the gap of, uncomfortable conversations to make them bigger and better, so we can grow with that.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I'm Christine. I'm starting a company called the Mind Escape Retreat Center. And part of my goal is to create a place for people to facilitate their own self-healing. So in conversations with Chandra and Claire, we all kind of have the same passion, and that's love of people. And so one of the things I wanted to share is our quotes. Mine is love is everything for this year. Chandra,
So Christine told me about this, and 15 years ago or so, where I was asked to put down my religion, I said that love wins. I feel like for me, that's what comes forward.
Beautiful. And I met Christine just over a week ago, and when she brought up her love is everything, something that me as a writer have come forward with is love answers all inquiries.
love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been talking a few minutes. Claire and Chandra just met within a half hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
None of us have had really any time to put this all together, but part of that is the reason why we haven't really organized it, because our goal is to have real conversation that is unedited and open, whether it's painful or joyous, anything in between. It's about creating clear communication and understanding feelings and where we're going and growth with plain talk, I guess is what I would say. So
Yes.
yeah. So we were talking about so much stuff, but we were talking about meeting and being open and opening up people's vulnerabilities. And one of the gifts that I feel like is in my life is meeting people and instantly creating connections. Sometimes I'll find myself at places and people are crying, or we're in these deep conversations, about life in the supermarket. And my goal is to create a process and facilitate people being connected with the right people. So after meeting Claire and knowing Chandra, I thought, what better way to start the group with people that have the same values. I think we all are very equal about how we feel about people. And so we'll just kind of continue some of the talk that we were going through a few minutes ago.
Wonderful.
All right.
Yeah. I'll go next.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm Claire Morency, and I am a clinical hypnotherapist. And the beauty of hypnotherapy is that it's great for everyone in an accelerated way to healing versus talk therapy that many of us have done, myself included, for decades. The other beauty that I love and do bring forward is being a conscious language instructor. What that means is every word that we speak, if we can all imagine this moment, actually is laying pavers that we then step on of where our life is going, what trajectory we're on. So if we become more conscious of our words, we can change our trajectory deliberately and make new choices. And then notice that this frequency we're on does in fact guide us to our love, to our goals, to our dreams and desires. The other beautiful thing, as you watch my hands move, is I'm a body language translator. So speaking consciously or not, body language or not, are all subconscious tools that I have, and that's why hypnosis works so well, because it too is in that subconscious realm. And so what I love to do is, with my clients, is to really reflect what isn't being said but that I can read. So as a translator in the house, many times people get squirmy or rub their eye over and over again, and this is translatable. And so I'll ask them a question that will come into kind of through the back door of what's really going on in their life. And so with this, it brings them closer to their inner world rather than speaking the outer world. So my joy is for people to get to a place of loving themselves, feeling whole and complete, to live their highest choice, to be on their highest trajectory for their life. And it's a delight.
Yes, I think people yearn to have that wholeness, to have authenticity in relationship. So thank you for inviting us here to discuss it. I am Chandra Villano. In When I Be, I am a gardener, dancer, mover, and in what I do or have done for almost the last 20 years is practice naturopathic medicine, which aligns with this conversation in supporting the body's vis medicatre naturae, or chi, all the different ways that all the different healing modalities across the world call it, but being able to have your body's innate divine ability to do what it knows how to do. And part of that is through love of self, connection that is healthy, authentic, even vulnerable with other people. And I view myself as one of the tenets of naturopathic medicine is called docere in Latin, which is doctor is teacher. And part of my transition out of sitting with patients one-on-one, trying to be more effective for more people and more affordable for more people, is working in group settings and being able to have that synergy and share of exchange of information, reinforcing knowledge of what people are doing, especially in integrating lifestyle and mentally having a bigger perspective from self and kind of operating in an optimal way to view, so we can bring tools forth and relationships forth that are intentional.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I appreciate about both of you is I have found that in my practice, as everyone, well, not everybody, but Chandra knows, and maybe not Claire, is that I left the world of practicing as a massage therapist and as an educator because I got to a place where I wasn't healthy to facilitate my own self-care. That what happened was I didn't feel I was, because I'm very black and white, I didn't feel like I was in a place that I could facilitate other people's self-care. So the great part about coming back to this world, and one of my conversations with Claire is, I brought up about a TikTok video where these guys may not watch TikTok and I do, but it was really intriguing to me. This woman was lonely, and she said how I'm 40 years old and I have no friends, and basically my work and my work life, and then I have my family, but outside of that I don't have any friends. But she had all these views and she had all these clicks. And in my own space, I've been in that space of vulnerability where I did feel excluded and isolated. And it all came down to not having the tools of communication and having organic conversations. And I think one of the things you said earlier is having self-confidence to be who we are. We had this beautiful conversation our first meeting. But what do we do to get people back to that? I love people. I meet people everywhere. I'm a people person. And I had a gentleman that he's very successful, and he talks about like giving money. And he's like, we could do this much if we were able to raise this much money to give to people. And my whole thing that I have found and what I shared with him is the most impact I've made on person is buying them a cup of coffee and spending the time with them. It's not the money that would have changed it. It's the time of being intentional for the person when you sit in front of them. And those are the impacts I love to make. And part of me collaborating, which is important for me, is that I can then facilitate and connect, because I love connecting people and I love doing it through being authentic and finding the right spaces and paying attention to what people need. And that's where I feel sometimes that gift of time and being is really a special place to be in. And my gift might just be that time and facilitating them moving on to the next person. But that's the world that, in my space, that's what I like to create. That's where I feel like I'm gifted at. So I think as we have these conversations, it's just, I love the suggestions and I love the topics that we talk about with it. And so maybe in this conversation of continue to like grow on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, a gift of time allows people to be seen and to be heard, and money can't buy that anywhere. And as you referenced, someone that their perspective was that they were lonely, sounds like they weren't necessarily alone. They have family, they have some coworkers, and there's kind of a difference, I think, in how we perceive that. And sometimes just having someone take the time may reflect back in that, oh, I'm not necessarily alone, and maybe the percolation of how that emotion or that perception gets received, is a little bit different. And so just that sharing of time may just move in that person's body or perception, of self.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, multiple times a day, I try to operate from the higher self Chandra. So I'm observing how I'm interacting with others, or what's coming out of my mouth, or what's going on in my head, to
Mm-hmm.
myself, kind of checking that. And not everyone has that reminder of trying to operate that way, and just being received in complete, unconditional listening allows people to get to a place where you're giving them value, even if they don't know how to bring that necessarily to themselves without any tools yet or construct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. I agree. And the other thing that happens when we are face to face with someone, whether it's in a coffee line or not, is our frequency, our energy, our presence. So our presence in our meeting becomes one. So the three of us now have a unified field that we are naturally pausing, listening, and we just know who's speaking next. There isn't a system that we've created.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this natural field that we've created, the three of us.
Yeah, feeling it.
And
Mm-hmm.
yes, we can
Mm-hmm.
feel it. And so the love that we each share, and we're each here representing our version of what love means, exists when we're in line meeting people at coffee or at the garage sale or something. And so being present, the frequency of presence is where our heart connection happens, the coherence of, wow, I feel you, I see you, even without words,
Mm-hmm.
that exists or can exist. And it does exist whether the person that we're being with is aware of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
The seeds of love have been dropped, the seeds of presence, the seeds of, wow, I see you, way deeper than the eye,
Mm-hmm.
going in and really seeing and feeling who they are in line.
It's really interesting you just brought that up too. So I'm a person that sees everything. I hear everything. Sorry, but I do.
No.
But the interesting fact of that is that in this world of seeing, hearing, paying attention, there is a vulnerability in that, because people then think you're nosy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about that, thinking about knowing your time and place. But we don't engage a lot of it, because I think there is a little bit of fear in engaging and getting into somebody's business. And I think that's one thing that makes me good at bringing up vulnerability, because I do lack that boundary.
I have the
So
example of moving the placemat.
yes, yes, oh yes.
Oh, cute. Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's, as you say that, I do pay attention to, and I hear things that probably I don't have to hear, and sometimes I choose to process it, or sometimes I don't. But I have learned with an age and movement and going through life when the appropriate time is. I can feel when it's not. Where when I was younger, it didn't matter. I still did it, ended up in some negative kind of ways. But yeah, I think that's really important to pay attention. And how do we know when the right time is, right? I don't know if there is a right time to know when to pay attention. And,
For us individually, is that a question you're asking?
No.
Or pay attention to another person that
I
we're
think even when we're in
going to-
line, I was watching at Pioneer Coffee, as it's a local coffee shop, plug to that. But, one of the things in that is that everybody was on their phones. So as literally couples were looking at each other on their phones, like, when do you interject, or when can you share? Or if someone suggests, like I heard a couple the other day and they're like, well, we want to go on a walk, where's a good place? And I'm getting my coffee, taking everything in, and I'm like, oh, there's a great place at the up the road at the Coal Miners Trail, 2 blocks up on the left hand side. It's a beautiful walk, gorgeous colors. Because sometimes that might have been intruding in the conversation. Do you see what I'm saying? So there is that flow, I think, naturally, of not being a Karen, or not being this person that's into someone else's business or stuff, because it's so labeled. So I think when you have talked about that natural awareness, I'm like, and I was thinking, like, sometimes why people don't have that relationship, maybe it's because they're so worried on the judgment of it.
That's where most of this stems from, is the judgment. Yeah, because when we're in judgment, we go into right, wrong, which is good and bad. And that's the foundation of most people's errors, missing the mark, is the judgment. And judgment of others stems from self-judgment. And so that's where the healing can begin, to then be able to welcome a new friend with open arms. 2 new friends.
Yeah.
Now I got 2 of you. Yay. Yeah. 2 new friends with open arms. Because if and when, not if, but if when I screw up, I'll call on myself and or welcome either of you to say, hey, that sounded weird, or ooh, where'd that come from? Where a tone or a something shows up that's off mark. And it's like, oh yeah, God, thanks for telling me. I missed that. Yeah.
Or that wasn't my intention.
Or absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what I feel like sometimes, you could hear something. I could have interjected and said, hey, there's a great trail. And they're like, we're not interested. Okay, perfect. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think there's that fear. And that's what it's like about having honest talk and having conversations and getting that feedback and being open to tough conversations. I think we're in such a sensitive place right now that everyone feels that everyone's so easily offended that I just wonder what holds back, like, us fulfilling that need of wanting more friends. I have amazing friends, all different demographics. So when I find myself poor and sometimes monetarily, I find myself so rich in relationships. Because for me, it's not, I don't care what people have or what I have. It's the time that we share in these wonderful talks. I'm not a light thinker. Like, I'm not a light processor. If I'm in boring conversation that's just superficial, then I usually am the first one off the island, because they're like, I don't even know what she's talking about, because to be honest with you, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But when I'm in deep, when I'm feeling the conversation and there's a space that needs to be held, that's where I'm good at, because that's my depth. I like the journey of knowing somebody, good and bad.
Well, and that's the leaning in. For you and I, who just met last week, we both leaned in to engage and learn, and like, wow, who is this other remarkable person. And then with that leaning in, the editing of, can I ask this or not, was gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we both are comfortable with the English language. We can communicate and laugh and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, go deep fast, which we learned, you know, that's where we both love to sit in that yummy, soulful, organic movement that a conversation can have its own wings. And it did, and here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's juicy.
Very,
Yeah.
It's
very.
juicy. Yeah, and as you talk about your energy, I feel like your energy's high, and you do have the capability, because for all of us, there's this filter of love and trying to show up that way, that you sink in. And so when it's authentic instead of superficial, you do slow down and sink in and lean in and listen there. And what you were both saying about judgment, and not only as a very observatory person towards self and outward, and also just being hyper medically trained,
Mm-hmm.
I look at people's foot tapping, or them, you know, pulling their eyebrow, or, you know, the tics, or the things that happen there. And sometimes I will hold back on saying certain things because I know the person's uncomfortable or they're stressed, or but yet in highly observing those types of things, like, you know, you mock my husband and I because we kind of, you know, move stuff around, and I'll like, can I put this over here, please? Thank you. I really like this right there. Thank you. But he and I have had, you know, not warm feeling conversations that were excellent, and yet, you know, his feedback is sometimes I'll say this about that because it's what I've observed in his body language or something he's doing for self-care, and he feels judged with that.
Yeah.
And so for me, there's an internal process of letting that percolate, and then how that comes through in love, or, you know, using nonviolent communication to, I see or I feel, versus you know, putting the energy out to the other person. And so there's delicate nuances about being authentic, but I think ultimately, like you guys already said, when you're operating from love, you didn't even say, well, can I ask you this? Is that okay? I mean, the permission was, you said, went out the door or something already.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a, I think, a needed gift for so many of us who want to be connected.
Well, I think that, and that's what I love about you saying bringing tools, right? Because, and obviously we all have 3 different degrees of education. I've mastered the associate's degrees times 3. So I don't want to have a lot of power over you, and I have a lot of certificates.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to, and there's a lot of, it's interesting. I think what I've realized with tools, it's a constant learning in life. And, you know, sometimes when I started my businesses, where I first met Chandra, someone said, how did you grow this business? Because I didn't know better not to. Wasn't fearful because I didn't know the outcome. If I would have known what I was getting myself into and how many hurdles I would have had to jump over because I didn't have all the right stuff, licenses, we'll just go there. But people loved me and helped me along the way because they knew my intent was right. But I would, now that I'm more educated, there's much more fear. Because you're right, there's all these boundaries that are not created by me, but interpretation of boundaries that are set by others. So I think as everyone's having these conversations, you're right, it's like all these unpeeling that we're all doing, but we're all doing them at different levels because we don't all have the same education in it. So I think sometimes, and I think I said to you the other day, I think sometimes the conversations I can have is because I don't have the level of education and the boundaries that other people have. And I don't mean that in a discouraging or disrespectful or belittling way to myself, but I think it's just one less thing that I have to jump through, you know, and I can ask for forgiveness later. I didn't know that was a boundary that I had to set, right? And so it's interesting. I don't want to change that about me. Like, I love the place of vulnerability that I come from and that they come from. And even the people that sometimes are the most educated, when they meet me, I think I I come from a place that they're like, okay, there's no not that there's no expectation, because I have to be careful on how I say it. You guys, they'll correct me, but there's a different level of that I come into that is not as intimidating. I have a good friend. She's, I'll just call her Cass. And we both wrote letters to a superintendent one time, and he did not respond to hers, but he responded to mine. Well, hers was really laid out with all the WAC codes. She's much like Chandra, very detailed, and it looked like a letter that was a lawsuit. And I wrote my email, misspelled letters, hey, Gare, I went through the whole thing, and he responded right away. And she was like, why did he respond to you and not me? And I go, because he's not concerned on what he says to me. Non-threatening.
Yeah.
Right? So that's that piece of, I love that I can walk into those doors, but where I not feel liability, but as people are opening up, they open up with a lot of space to me. They say a lot of stuff that's vulnerable. And I honestly, that's where I'm really, I look at my friends like you and like Chandra and other people in my life, that I can send them to the right people, because there is honor in that space. And I think when people do share their detailed parts, is that they are looking for someone to facilitate that thought and to help them in that process, whether that's friend making or whatever it is. It can be something simple, it could be something deep, it could be something else. But I think, like you said, you see me as a woman that's very confident in myself, but it's taken me 52 years to get here.
Yeah.
And in this last year I was broke, right? Like mentally, physically, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm one of those people that walking that in myself is okay. It's hard, but I will put the foot in front of me, where I've seen other people that are more educated and stuff, and they weren't able to do that. And I wish that in my journey of life that I started this connection earlier to others, because I would have facilitated a lot more self-care for others than I did in the past, right?
Well, and you had to learn that to get here. I mean, I'm 63, and I too have had a roller coaster of wealth and feeling broke, and wealthy and feeling broke, and I now am very aware, and I've been here 1 year, and so I'm recreating myself again. I'm very aware of the risk that comes from the wanting to do something and meet new people, as well as then being vulnerable enough to show up authentically, which has to be gone, right? To show up and allow what is going to unfold.
Yeah.
And if this is a business opportunity, cool. If it's not, cool. What is going to grow here? What's the exploration? And with the three of us, is one thing I absolutely love is the uniqueness as the garden of three women, that we're all so distinctly unique in our beauty and our gifts and our ability to communicate and the delight. Like if I described you to Chandra and she didn't know you, she might not know who I was talking about, and vice versa. So our perception and perspective of who each other is completely unique as well. And that's the flower then I get to create and say, oh, I met Chandra today, and guess what? And I draw the picture of who you are to me. And that's the beauty that we experience and that we receive, as well as then we can share on the journey with other women. That this is one more experience that I've had with women that was rich and delightful, and certainly could be ongoing. And
well, yeah, and at different times. I mean, Chandra and I have known each other since 2005, and there's been 6 months we barely talked, but it doesn't mean that the relationship's not there. And that's the distinction of true, healthy, rich relationships. Like You know, it is ever moving.
Mhm.
And it's okay when people step out of our lives as well. And I think that's been a big part for me. I don't know if I told Sean or you, but I feel like sometimes I'm only in people's life to fill them up. And as soon as I fill them, they're like gone. And I used to be hurt by that. And now I'm like, it's just my gift. Like I had to change how I looked at it. Like it was no longer abandonment. It was like the setting free. And you know,
Beautiful.
and it does take a lot, because as people we're like, our natural thing is what happened. But sometimes it's just growth and development. And I can't fear change of others. You know, and I think my whole life has been about pleasing others. And in my relationships moving forward, it's really about pleasing myself, making myself whole. And as I find, and that's the difference of change of all of us being together, I am happy with myself. And being happy with myself has disappointed a lot of other people. But I'm joyous in that. Not that, I mean, I'm sad that they can't understand me loving myself, but this is the first time in my lifetime, in 52 years, I love the woman I am. And we were talking about at lunch today, I am the woman I say I am. I questioned myself in Mexico this year. I'm like, am I really who I say I am? Because if I'm not going to step forward as that woman, then I have to really re-identify who I am. Because I'm not going to give someone, you know, I'm not going to write a resume and tell you who I am, and at the end of it, 90% of it is BS. Like I want to be that person, even if it's not complete, what other people think complete is. And I think that's the joy, you know, who I am as a woman. And, you know, I've been married 3 times. I've raised 6 kids, 2 biological, 4 stepkids. I love them like I'm my own. There's not a separation for me. But when you look at me, if I put that all down there, it's open to judgment, right? But that's just all been season of my learning. And honestly, not only of my learning, of me finally accepting and looking at why those didn't work. And it was because I was never authentic in myself. And that was the piece of the puzzle for me that was like, wow, it was all created by me. You know, I mean, there's no blame game. It was me.
Exactly.
And so it is interesting as I relate to other people now and women, I have to, like, I don't expect people to be vulnerable, and I understand it takes courage, but I do expect people to be real. And you don't have to tell me anything that's not authentic or truth. I'm not asking any of that, because I'll accept anyone as they are. You know, just like you said, the person I am or I be or whatever. It's like, I'm fine with the authentic person. And that is important for me to be in.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I love that you say that it's a season in life, because I think that's such a rich metaphor. And just reflecting as you're unfolding that about yourself, that you said, oh, it's just growth and development. And I feel like I want to say, it is growth and development.
Yes.
Like, we're not going to minimize that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. And so
Yeah.
what reflected is knowing you longer than Claire, and the history of all the businesses and all the successes, and just hearing you reiterate, part of that came from you were fearless, that you didn't know where you could fail, so there wasn't fear there. But how that's extended now personally, to where you're so inner satisfied and fulfilled at your deep level, is that now you have, to me, you don't exhibit fear in this, in the vulnerability, in the connection, in the verbalization, in the communication. And it just, you've translated it to that much more deeper personal work. So I say yes to growth and development.
Well, and I think that's for all of us, right? I mean, I think that's for
Definitely.
you taking the risk of coming here,
Yes.
and you taking the risk of moving
Yes.
forward in your life. Like, I don't think any of us are all different. I think, we all can look back at what brought us to where we are. I never wanted to be a victim of my past. And that was, I think I took it too far. I kept showing people more and more, but I carried the weight of this part that really didn't show the reflection of really who I am. It's like I told you, I was in New York City and I'm down there looking at a graffiti artist to paint my street shoes and my graffiti. I'm from the 80s, and so the movie Beat Street really played a lot with me, and I love street art. But a gentleman came up to me and said, "What's it like being a privileged woman?" And I was like, I started laughing because I'm like, you surely aren't talking to me, right? But in another sense, that's that fake cover that we all present. And maybe it's because I don't live in my pain. Maybe he wants me to show my weight and my burden, but I'm not willing to do that. Like, I'm moved past that.
And you weren't willing to accept that judgment.
I wasn't. And
you called him on
I
it.
did call about it, but and it was funny, people were looking, but
Yeah.
but the part of that is really interesting, and it's interesting to me how people will look, because I put my hair on today, I put on a nice shirt, I put on a piece of jewelry, then that's perfection. Instead of the part of it is like, that's just a mask. Like, for me, this is nothing, right? Like, and I really want to not show my pain and be masked in that, but be comfortable enough that I can actually share and be who I am in a bit. Like, because people will say to, well, you don't understand. And it's kind of interesting. I'm like, wow, I had no money. We had no food. We were starving at some times. I wore the same clothes every day. I mean, you look at, I was raised in a dysfunctional lifestyle growing up at different points. But you don't have to drag that into your now to still understand and be compassionate and empathetic in it. The only times I've been miserable is when I tried to hide it, mask it, pretend it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that's that place that I think, in honest talk, it's like, and I have to say, first of all, and you can go in on the tools of this, when you speak to people, and you said that quote, can you remember the one that says to know, it's the one about talking about when to expose yourself. You had texted to me about.
Oh, it's a lesson that I repeat to myself all the time, and it has to do with when we have a great idea and we're excited about it, and we maybe share it with a few too many people, and then others are talking about it, and it gets diluted and watered down, and then somebody says, oh yeah, I heard you're going to do that, and you kind of go, oh no, and it fizzles. So the wisdom quote of Ascended Master Saint Germain is to know, to dare, to do, and be silent.
And I take that in the relationships of expressing anyone. You have to be in a place of trust, and you have to know. And I think that's what people fear, is like, well, someone's going to share my information. I say, as a person receiving it, if you don't want me to share me, let me know. Don't feel, if you feel at any moment you're with someone, then don't say it, right? But if you're in a space and you just need to say, can you honor me by not sharing that information? I find that very powerful, that someone has told me to honor it, which I would honor it anyways. And sometimes we don't know, but that space of creating that safe space for yourself and actually using tools. And I think you guys are really good about that, to say, please don't share this. And I think as women, we don't say that enough. And then we find ourselves in positions that someone else knows something, and you're like, well, I thought it was in our confidence, but did you really create that confidence? And I think as we're talking, I think we have that created confidence.
The three of us.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
But I think I have a lot of that created confidence. But I think as people do their real talk or their natural conversations, if you're expressing yourself, I think it is really important to make sure you are creating that confidence between the group.
I also think that what I believe is there's because the three of us have a level of personal integrity, then we know that there's no need to cross over anyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
Whether there's a juicy story or not, that's between you and I, or the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that that was shared in a place of purity and vulnerability, and it's up to, it's not even a conscious choice for me anymore. I mean, it is, but it's so imprinted in me because of what I do, that secrets or people's private sharing their soul's
Mm-hmm.
feelings or work is an honor.
Yeah.
So it's at the place of honor, of love, of respect, and I'm their vault, I'm their person, I'm their angel. That moment
Mm-hmm.
that they are at that place that they can and do trust.
Yeah.
And that's huge then for them to know, wow, it's safe with Chandra. I'm so happy. I finally got that off my chest. And that is so huge for the sharer to know that the listener has their back too. Just not sharing means I've got your back.
Sacred respect.
Yes.
Sacred respect, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I get a lot of people that come to me and they give me a lot of information. I used to say, I will create a space for it and I'll carry the weight of the world for you. I now changed that because I was driven into the ground with the weight. I now say, I'll hold it and I'm going to hand it back to you. So I'm going to create a space that will hold that energy and that weight for you for a short period of time while you gather your thoughts and you take your time to breathe and you can feel yourself again. You can feel where you need body work or where your brain needs attentions or the thoughts that come up. But as I told you, I do these imaginary things, and these are all not proven science. This is my stuff. So I imagine a mailbox and people handing me their brain and their stuff out of their mouth is like mail, and I put it back in the box as they leave, and I close the thing and it goes with them, right? And I reread their mail when they come back, because that is their sacred space. It's their stuff that they're processing. And the one thing I've learned is I even have a child, and he said to me sometimes, because I'm a natural fixer, I want to help people and fix it and give suggestions, much like all of us, like, let me help you. But my son came to me and said, Mom, sometimes I just want you to shut up and listen. I don't want your opinion. I really just wanted you to listen. I don't want you to fix things. And so that gave me a real different perspective too. Like, when those people are ready, they can facilitate their own self. Like, maybe it's asking me who they can go to, or I can make a suggestion. Doesn't mean they're going to do it. And so I've had to really sit in that of not being frustrated, like, I gave you the sources. But at the end of the day, it's again for them to facilitate their own self moving forward. Because you can't push anyone to go anywhere. You can't drag them. They're very heavy to drag.
I've heard another woman say, don't steal someone's divine process.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
And when you're a helper, personality or tendency, I think about that statement a lot.
Beautiful.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I have to allow. I can't push it, and
Yeah.
because then, as an example with my husband again, he feels judged when my intent may be to help, but like, it is his process.
Mm-hmm.
That statement has helped me a lot.
Will you repeat that?
Don't steal someone's divine process.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, worth repeating. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that, just to circle back on one thing that Chandra made a comment of your story, that I feel is important in being mature and feeling whole and complete and being in a place to be vulnerable is. The seasons of what happened to each one of us. We all are sharing some stories here, and we all know each other's secrets that are deeper than this table has. And that is that we actually know it's a season, that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
That we've experienced enough of life, of that ebb and flow of the tide or the moon, whatever cycle, or our breath, whichever one you choose to equate this to, that we know that the tide will come in again, and we just need to ride this out. And that's part of the don't steal someone's sacred journey, is that's me too, not my own. It's like, wait, I can wait and trust myself, trust my higher self, trust the universe, whatever language, that this too shall pass, and still keep my intention or trajectory where I choose to go.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just mentally, or I'm in the self-care in the tub, okay, what am I doing today? But still is a facilitation of me getting through the low tide back in on my surfboard of life.
Yeah, and I think it's, I can't tell you how many people say, I'm sorry I feel this way. Why be sorry? You feel that way. You know, I mean, I think that's part of it. It's like, why are we guilty for feeling? You know, I mean, I think about all the feelings that, like, I'm not guilty. I don't feel guilty for feeling this way. If I feel, it's how I am. You know, and I think women and men, I mean, it's not inclusive to gender, but people are guilty to feel. And that really stops the process of moving forward.
I think that's a cultural thing, or at least partly cultural.
Yeah.
Part of it is women to hold back and just serve, so we don't have the opportunity to feel. That's at least part of my generation growing up. And then the other is culturally, even kind of what's going on right now, that us being able to say no or yes, or stating what we like or don't like, because we are whole and complete on our own, rather than looking for an outside authority or looking for a affirmation, or looking for something else that will fuel us. Like you gave the example earlier of the woman who said she's alone and then had all these TikTok likes. You know, that's the seeking outer fulfillment that is an empty cup.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me that people don't take the time to know each other. I think it comes back to that space of people being on their phone and when to interrupt a conversation, or how do we make, I never used to have to get through the phone barrier. You know, I never used to have to, I mean, everyone's on their phone.
That's right.
It's like, there's no pause, right?
Are you watching this on your phone?
Yeah. I never had to break through that, but now I'm like, hey, are you on your phone? But it's interesting. I think creating that time and space, and that's what I loved about that day with you. We talked for 4 hours, and it was like, who gives 4 hours to a stranger? I do that quite often.
You
but,
do.
But
Much more than me.
And you were saying, I mean, we have the benefit of language, and not to be a barrier, but I go to Mexico or overseas and I do the same thing. I'll bring out my translator. Painful. I mean, they think it's I love it. I mean, for me, when you're not speaking, the words have to be so intentional. So me translating, where people are like, oh, I actually prefer it, because you have to be very thoughtful in your thoughts. And for a person like me that just words fly out of my mouth, I confuse people sometimes. So in that, being intentional is really powerful, because, if you translate, you can really get yourself in a bind. So never translate if you go to Mexico. That poor young man that thought I was trying to sleep with him was a really horrible thing when I was just trying to talk to him, because everything is so different. So you just have to make sure, and that's made me more and more present, because I have to be line by line, because you cannot translate over an app more than a sentence, because it gets misconstrued. It gets all jumbled together. So it has made me very intentional And then being in the States, because I have to take the time to listen on the other side, we look at more visual cues of feelings, right? And I'm a feeler. So when, oh, excuse my dog, we might have to take a quick break, but, but feeling, I get to feel the people as they have it translated to me, which has been really empowering to me. I've loved it. I've loved it.
I've heard the word intentional multiple times now, and in this thread of operating from love, belief in what love can do, the intentional piece reminded me that your vision of how you receive people with the mailbox imagery and then shut the door to the mailbox, and you said you take the weight of people on. So not only are you intentional there, but just with, you said the word weight, but the weight of your body that you have also intentionally let go. It's a, to me, it reflects a really good inner process in intentionality with others in the world, and then intentionality inward to self.
Yes, I appreciate that.
I do too.
Well, and it is a proven technique because it's what you use and how you navigate your life.
Yes.
So
You two continue talking. I'm gonna go get some snacks real quick. I'll be right back.
Well, maybe we summarize this and put a bit of a pin in it for someone to take away some of this juicy percolation.
Boy, my feeling and experience with Christine and now you, Chandra, is welcome and allow a new experience to unfold and just show up, and then be present in it, participate, contribute, and see what arrives.
I wholeheartedly agree and receive. I'm just receiving the juice. Yeah. So maybe we've summarized.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think
Wondering if you have a take home that's filtered for you with this sharing.
Well, I love it. Like, I love real conversations, so natural, organic. And what I love about it is how I learn from two different perspectives. And every time I get a thought or feedback, what I'm hoping
Yours
for,
included.
yeah, yes, all of it. It's all thrown out here. What means something to me is that we can all have different opinions, and we're not trying to trump one another or squash anybody's growth. And I think that's what people need to see. So my take home from this really
Not in any way.
Yeah.
Zero. Yeah.
And what I want to see is to show, I mean, my take home, I love the conversation. It always helps me grow. I always feel empowered out of conversations that can have tough topics or growing things out of it. I never feel like it left me less. I always feel like it gave me more. And I think part of my growth of doing this is for other people, women, to see that these conversations are good. This time is sacred, but in so many more ways. I feel fulfilled and loved as a human being. I feel included. I feel enriched. Like, I feel like my mind, I got free education and growth, right? Like, there's so much to it. And as I watch people say, I'm lonely, I have no friends, I have no one to talk to. I mean, it's an epidemic. But here is an example of a person that knew each other. You drove for an hour to come here for this. You're new to the table, in the sense of, but it's just good time. And it really, the intention is good, and the conversation is great. And, like, I have a dream and a goal that we pick different conversations how often we can do it. and create something from it for growth for not just a group, but inclusively everyone, collectively.
Yep. Yes.
And we all bring our sharing, and that amplifies what each other brings in.
Yes, it
I
does.
feel in a higher state,
Mhm.
allowing
Mm-hmm.
myself to listen, receive, contribute.
And this is,
Yes.
as you hear the dog in the background and this is really organic. It's nothing but the intention of me meeting Claire and knowing Chandra, and I'm like, this could be a powerful, growing conversation because we had someone that watched it from a distance before.
Yes. Oh,
And
good point.
watching the
Mhm.
reception and what that person took from it, and watching where we want to grow for others. I mean, I globally want to change the world one person at a time. It isn't just in my home or my community or my state or my country, or like, it's universal. Like, for me to empower women to have healthy conversations, and not only in that process, but to heal and grow from those conversations.
Absolutely,
That
yes.
is, that for me is my
Raise the
intention.
vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you hold a master's, a doctorate, or anything else. Like, we, with what we
Try
are,
certificates.
yes, yeah, we with what we are people that are always creating motivation and change. And for me, like, love is everything. It's like, for me, it is. It's like, when people come up to me and try to argue with me and, and put me in a demographic, or always try to tell me something. And I had one gentleman, I'm like, sir, I love people. And he couldn't come back with me at a negative conversation because he wanted me to think that I hated him, right? But I'm like, I love people. I'm sorry that your perception is I'm that way, but I'm a person of love. I love people. And he was like, he couldn't say anything.
Love dismantled it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Shut it
beautiful.
down. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So, yeah. Anyways, I mean, for me, this has been a complete joy and
Yes.
an honor, and thank you. And I hope
For
that
me
we
too.
can
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yes.
Find
thank you all
space.
for being here
Yeah.
with us.
space
Yeah.
every week, and how we choose to share this. And I mean, I look forward to using some different modalities and sessions to get it out to other people, and maybe have other people join, but I think it's good.
Let's amplify the love.
All right.
Yes, indeed. Mhm.
All right, well, until next time and next topic.
Beautiful. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Thank you.